Hello, welcome to the second video in the Access to Work kind of series. So I'm AJ, I'm the founder of this group, and I'm a coach and a mentor. And this is the lovely Steph, who's going to talk to us shortly. So earlier this year, I applied for my own Access to Work grant, and I got it through a few months ago, and I've kind of gradually got the bits and pieces that I got the funding for. And I've got a range of things that at kind of various points in the future I can show you more about if you're interested. I've got things like software for planning, kind of mind mapping. So there's a piece of software called Idea Mapper Pro, which I'm finding really, really useful. Caption.ed, which is software that will kind of put captions across your screen when you're on Zoom calls, or if you're, in meetings or watching a video. Brain in Hand, which is excellent. It's quite complicated to explain, so I think I have to do a whole thing on that separately. But it's really, really good individualized support. Coping strategy training, and the best thing of all is a support worker to help me in my business, and that's what Steph does. So Steph's going to come in today and tell you all a bit more about what is involved with that. So what it's like to be a support worker for someone who's neurodivergent, types of things that she does, and any kind of tips about what to ask for when you're going through the Access to Work process, and anything else that comes to mind, Steph, whatever you want to tell us about the whole thing. So do you want to just introduce yourself first and then tell us what you do?
Yeah, so I'm Steph. I know a few people who are in this group will know me already. I'm a virtual assistant, and I don't feel like that's necessarily the best title to describe me, but it's the one that most people will kind of understand when you say, oh, they're a VA. I'm pretty much an online business services company. I do everything that a small business would need, which is great. But like I say, one kind of part of the business that I've really kind of found a lot of lately is ADHD access to work support. So I currently have 3 clients who are funded by the UK government. I did have a 4th in the past, but they've moved on to other employment and didn't need me anymore, which is always good. I think some of the misconceptions around sort of like things that person needs my help to do that particular job, but actually in a job where it's totally tailored to the way their brain works, they don't need that support. But the world's not made like that, and that's why the government have decided that they give money to people for people like me. So yeah, I kind of tripped and fell into this. I guess it's one of those things where people found me, and most of my clients are neurodivergent in some way, whether it's Access to Work funded or not. Like, these are all a bunch of mad people, and mad as a box of frogs. And you've all got your own quirks and little ways of working, but I like that because my brain's a bit like that as well. I love the variation in my work. I love that one day I'll be working on bits and bobs for e-commerce, and the next day I'll be doing video editing. It's so varied. So, and that's what it's like working with people with ADHD. So I guess where I first start is the application process. I am quite happy to help people with that. And as I said to you, AJ, the process is not made for people with ADHD.
Absolutely.
And I feel like they put it in place to like make you jump through a hoop to see how hard you find it. I'm sure that's part of the case, because honestly, it's a horrible process. I've actually applied for myself because of my physical stuff that I've got going on. And the initial form's not too bad, but it's like, I know what's coming because I've done it for other people, and I'm prepared because I've done it for other people. But like that ebook that you put out last week is phenomenal, because people don't have a roadmap to this. They're literally just chucked a load of stuff and told to do it, pulling accounts together, pulling projections. And quite a lot of people with neurodivergence struggle to visualize the future from one way or another. Some people do think in pictures and can think this is what my life is going to be like in 5 years' time. Some people are like, getting to the end of the day is big enough visualization for them. it's not a very friendly process. They try to be inclusive, but it's really not. Like, let's just be clear on that. It's not the most inclusive process at all. And yeah, like you'll know yourself, it was an absolute bear of a process to get to where we are. Was it 3 months we were working on your application or something together?
Yeah, and I think they originally asked for well, just to become clear as well, I don't think everyone has to do a business plan. But in my case, because the coaching business was so new, they asked me to do a business plan. And they gave me something like 2 weeks to do it in. And, there was just no way I was going to be able to pull that together in 2 weeks. So I think, but they did say you can come back and ask for an extension whenever you need it. And I think we had to push back about 3 times in the end. So it probably was something like 3 months, just getting the application all properly done.
The thing is, as well, when you're coming from a point of view where you don't have an established business, like your business is in the early years, they're going to want to see those projections. And quite a lot of people who are like in the entrepreneurial space are doing it because they don't fit in a normal workplace. So they are quite new to it. So it's that kind of like they've retrained because clearly their career wasn't working for them because it was made for a neurotypical brain. And then, so I imagine quite a lot of people do get asked to do that. I've been involved with 2 of them out of 3. One person was kind of doing some contract work for like the NHS and things like that. So obviously that's a different kettle of fish altogether. My first ever access to work client didn't actually have to do that because they were employed. And it's a whole other game when you're employed. It's so much easier because all they did was they asked what the person needed. There was a really quick phone call around that. It really wasn't anything anywhere near as extensive as what you went through. And within 2 weeks, it was a case of, right, get 3 quotes. And we just went on the internet, screenshotted 3 people's websites. And they were quite happy to accept that. Personally, I don't like to do that. And that's not how I'll do an access to work quotation. Because I think a lot of it is making sure that the person that you're hiring can do the work as well. Finding a support worker is not as easy as it sounds. So what I'm going to say about finding support workers, we're not all created equally. Not all virtual assistants can do the same thing. I mean, I've got acquaintances in the VA world who'll just do bookkeeping and invoice chasing and credit control. And that's specifically their area of VA services. There's also people who'll do events management, calendar management, and diary management, and nothing else. I kind of like to do things from an approach where I will take whatever I can to ease someone's burden, but also it's important to point out that I'm not allowed to do the job for them.
Yeah.
That being said, like, there's a lot that I can do without doing a job for you. I can do a lot to support the process. And, huge chunks of what I do is diary management and just making sure that people are on top of their game. But, I will take on little parts of projects, like a little bit of putting some social media graphics here and there, because, if that's something that you've exhausted yourself on the planning, the execution still has to be done by somebody. So that's a really big part of it, is kind of bridging the gap between the planning and the execution. Because what you often find as well with ADHD is that everyone gets so excited by the planning and they're trying to vision it and visualize it. And it's quite easy to go down software rabbit holes. I mean, everyone I've spoke to has at least tried Notion, Asana, like all of these list making things, all of the Google Suite tools. And it's great. They're great bits of software, but it's very easy to kind of go down the rabbit hole and spend more time actually setting up the software than the planning. So that's a big chunk of what I come in to do as well, is just making sure that there's the bridge between the planning and the execution. Because you could spend all day planning, but it's no good if you don't actually do the thing. Because doing the thing is the bit that earns the money, right?
Yeah. So, and it's doing it consistently as well. That's the real issue.
And ADHD is not built for that. ADHD is very much like any kind of chronic thing where there's an energy component, in that you have to balance that. There's the boomer bust cycles that we're all very familiar with. I can guarantee I'm going to have a bust cycle tomorrow because I am booming it today. Like, I have been blasting it. You'll know yourself, AJ. Like, what my emails be like this morning, I have been on it today.
Absolutely.
And like, I'll have days like that, and then there's other days where I'm just like, oh. But you see, that's what my clients are like as well. So it's kind of, I'm very aware and starting to become more aware of how my clients are working and what they are going to be like after specific times. And like I can look at your plan on a week and think, oh, AJ's going to nail this week, and I can think of that week, like, oh my god, that's a big one.
Yeah, you did that the other week, didn't you? You
I
said,
was
"Are you
really
sure you're
worried.
going to be able to do all of this?"
I was really worried because it was so like it looked so busy. It was stressful to look at it, to be honest. And like, if it's stressful for me to look at, what is it going to be like for you trying to execute that?
Yeah.
So, as I say, like I do a lot of different things, and I can kind of fit into most situations. But not all VAs are like that. So, what I would usually suggest to someone when they're looking for a virtual assistant, do your research. Have they supported anyone with ADHD before? What is their experience? How do they work? Are they fixed with how they work as well? Because some people will have very rigid systems. So I have a few things that I use reasonably consistently. I like to use Notion for a lot of the planning stuff because I have a Premier account, so all of my staff can access it. So if I want to delegate something to say Tom, and just tag him with it and he can get that. But if my clients can't work with that, we need to find a workaround, because I need to find a way to harvest the contents of their brain in a meaningful way that they are going to then be able to access in a meaningful way. Some people will be very stuck in what they're using. Like, this is what I'm using. I like Asana. This is how I've got Asana set up. And it's like, I personally would like to burn Asana to the ground. It is my least favorite software. And just seeing the notifications in my emails give me anxiety sometimes, I'll be honest. But yeah, it's all about finding the person that can fit in with how you are able to work and what you want to achieve. Yeah.
And that's why someone like you is so valuable, because for me, and I know a lot of people I've spoken to are the same, it's actually really stressful to even think of handing something over to somebody, but also like, how do you even explain what needs to be done? Like, is it even going to take longer than just doing it yourself? A lot of people kind of feel like that, and it feels like, well, I might be able to give some stuff to people, but then I've got to kind of manage it. But that's where really a support worker is different from just a VA, because like you say, you know how people like to work, you kind of get into, you know how their brains are working, and it's almost like I don't have to explain things in great detail to you, because you get it, you know what I'm trying to achieve, and you know, you can just sort of replicate me up to a certain point. But that is a really good point you made about you don't do the job. So when you're talking to Access to Work, you must make sure that you talk in terms of a support worker and not a VA. So that was the mistake I made, because I had no idea at the beginning. I went into it completely.
People assume as well that like a VA with a support worker is a VA doing a VA's job, and my Access to Work support work is actually quite different to normal VA work. Like, if I'm going in to do normal VA work, I might be building a website one day, or I might be doing something else. A lot of the support worker stuff is actually second checking things and helping the client to delegate, helping you to kind of get what's in here out of here into a structure, and then me making sure that you've got everything you need to be able to execute it, because I can think of all the moving parts that'll go with that, and the client quite often is just focused on the end goal and getting really excited, and actually there's a lot of components that go in there, and it's sometimes a bit of reality checking and making sure that you're aware of what needs to be done. And like I say, there's things where, like, some clients, for example, and I'm going to use the example of a timesheet, like getting the things out of a system and onto a timesheet. There's too much scope for muddling with that kind of thing. So what I might do is write a list of what needs to go on there. So it's literally a copy and paste job for the client. One of my least favorite jobs, and you'll know this, exactly what I'm going to say, is the godforsaken paperwork. Oh my God, right? If you get a support worker, get your support worker to do the paperwork, because there is too much margin for error with that. So obviously, claiming for a support worker, there's two ways you can do it. You can pay them and claim it back for your own money, or you can have it paid directly to support worker, which is the option I go for, because my invoices can get a bit pricey, and that will be a huge burden to put on the client. Access to Work currently owe me around £6,000 that keeps getting tanked, because somebody put a space at the end of a reference number, and somebody else accidentally transposed a client's address. It wasn't you, no. It was actually Access to Work did it. So they have to get a reference code to go with the payments, and they put a space on the end of the code, right? So all of my payments for that account got rejected. right? So fair enough, that's okay. But then the next day they tried to pay me for another account and they put the client's address as my address. So it blocked it. So all accounts linked to me until 2 days ago were completely blocked while the pending investigation. So I was on the phone on Wednesday making them figure stuff out. They need a support worker. It's not you guys. It's bloody Access to Work needs a support worker because the mess that they made of these 2 payments, I still haven't got that yet, you know. But
No.
there's
and that's why it's so overwhelming from this point of view. So to know that you're kind of dealing with that, I know it's a complete headache, but you're on top of it, and you know, dealing with them.
This is it. Like some things I'll do if you've got phone calls to make. A lot of my clients don't like using the telephone. I'm not a massive fan myself, but it's almost that mum instinct kicks in. Like I can't ask for ketchup myself in a restaurant, but if my friend needs ketchup, I'm getting that ketchup for them. And it's the same kind of way with phone calls for Access to Work clients. I will never ring someone on the phone, but if you guys need me to call someone, my mother instinct kicks in and I make that phone call. And like I really enjoy the work as well. I don't think it would be the kind of thing that would fit everybody, because like quite often my days run late. Quite often every single meeting that I will do will be late because every single client has ADHD and they're down a rabbit hole that day. Monday just gone is the first week ever that every single meeting has started on time, with the exception of one because one of my clients did break down at the side of the road. That wasn't their fault. But yeah, like I will often start meetings anything between 5 and 15 minutes late because the client went down a rabbit hole. And I'm fine with it because all I'll log into their account, see where we're at, see if there's anything I can pick up on, see if there's any admin I can do, any emails I can deal with. I'm just looking in the comments, somebody's put they'd love to have a chat with me, but I can't see their name because it's showing that they're a Facebook user.
Oh yes.
Feel free to announce yourself.
Oh, and hi, Liz. Liz is there as well.
Someone else has said hi as well.
Oh, yeah. And that's another one, Facebook users. So we don't know who it is. So if you can let us know, or go to StreamYard.com and just give it permission to show, to let Facebook
in the chat as well.
Oh, yeah. Great. Look, you can multitask.
Yeah,
I found that quite difficult.
That's one of the things I'll do as well, you know, like when people are doing like lives, they obviously haven't got multiple pairs of hands. Some people have the capability to sit and put links in while they're going live and manning live stream. I'm not that person. I'm the person that backs them up, because honestly, if it was me trying to do all of the things, it's very overwhelming for anybody. But I think we find it just that little bit harder. And it's just like, oh, there's an extra pair of eyes looking over things to make sure that the distraction didn't get you and didn't totally mess things up. I can't imagine it. Is it Marion? Who's Marion? Marion, you're welcome to have a chat anytime. What I'll do at the end, I'll pop a way of communicating with me and so you can have a chat. I said I don't charge for having a chat about Access to Work because, you know, you're not getting paid for me. So I'm happy to have a natter and go through any specifics to a situation, have a look at paperwork as well. There's so much you can mess up on those paperwork. And the amount of time it takes for things to come back as well, there's so much margin for error.
Yeah, and they don't kind of let you know speedily. Like if you submit something and you've used the wrong form, you haven't included something, you don't hear for ages and ages, and then suddenly you get it's just kind of rejected. You have to, you know, send it again, and it is a pain. So the more help you can get with it, the better.
Yeah, the other day when my payments got tanked, they had no intention of contacting me. And when I called up, they can't search me as a supplier. So if you've got a support worker as well, each support worker, whether they have multiple clients or not, is tied to the client. So I have to have all of your Access to Work reference numbers ready to hand and go through each account individually because they can't just pull me up as a supplier. It's absolute crazy case.
That's ridiculous. Hi, Peggy. Peggy is the other person who we couldn't see who it was.
Cool. Hi, Peggy.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the. Someone said, I think it was Liz, was saying that that how to get the stuff out of your head and what needs to be done, and that's one of the most valuable things because we can work together. It's like when we did a planning session, that was brilliant because I literally just talked and you captured it all, didn't you, in Notion? And then we've got that list that we can keep going back to and checking if we've dealt with that and. That that's invaluable. That's brilliant.
Recently,
sometimes Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, recently somebody referred to me as their executive function in human form.
Yeah.
Might have been you.
Yeah, I think it was actually. Yeah.
I'm basically the backup dancer, if you like. I'm the one that kind of holds it from the back. If your seams burst, I'm the one that holds the back together. You know, that's my job. And I love doing this job. Another thing I do as well is accountability, sort of co-working. So some people will want to sit and actually have someone kick their ass every half hour, sitting on a call. It's that body doubling aspect. There is software for this. FocusMate has changed my life. I spend a lot of time on FocusMate. I've got sessions booked all afternoon on my laptop, and I just sit and kind of have people there. Sometimes they're strangers, sometimes they're friends, but some people don't like that aspect. So having someone like me just sit on a call with you and just be like, where are you at now? Where are you going? Where are you at? That can work really well for them. And that's something else I offer as part of my access to work time as well.
It's tricky though, isn't it? Because you have to be careful as well, because quite a lot of us are a bit demand avoidant. So, you know, I guess we all have to be aware of that, you know, if you were to sort of be on my back too much, then actually I might kick back against that. But actually the way you do it, it's, you know, I don't, because we have such a lovely working relationship, I think.
We do. I love working with you.
So someone, I wonder if this is Marion again, or maybe it's Peggy. That's really useful indeed. So would you normally get access to work help for a set amount of months or for as long as you need it?
It's normally a 12-month sign-on, isn't it? So
yes.
When you're self-employed, and I'm not sure if it's the same for employment, but I know that you usually get 12 months and it can be renewed without reassessment for up to 3 years. So at sort of the 9-month mark, I'll give AJ a nudge and be like, we need to start getting onto them. They're supposed to contact you. They probably won't. So it'll be a case of chasing them, making sure that the renewal is in. After 3 years, potential reassess, very much like PIP or DLA, when you're applying for those kinds of disability benefits, they'll reassess after a certain amount of time, just to make sure your needs are still the same, whether they've got worse or better, whether you still need assistance for the same things, because things can change, you know. It's like anything. It's like with a physical disability, it could get worse or better. Neurodivergent works very much the same. Hormones can make it worse, or really good med balances can make it better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just thought of something. I bet it's disappeared out of my brain now. I just thought of something to ask you about. Is it to do with reapplying? Oh no, I know what it was. It's to do with the number of hours. It's really variable, isn't it? And I think one of the things that helped me, I've been really lucky and I've got a large number of hours. And I think the reason that happened for me, as opposed to some people I know who've had like really low numbers of hours that they get the funding for, is the help I had from you beforehand, because you did really help me work out what would be really helpful, like what kind of support would really help me. Because sometimes, you know, you get asked that, what would help you in your job, and it's just kind of, I don't know, I've got no idea. And I listed out absolutely everything, didn't I? I think I just thought about a friend of mine who had started the process earlier than me gave me that advice to just think about your job, list out absolutely every task that you possibly do. And then we kind of talked about it, and you talked about, well, I can help you with this and I can help you with that. And together we kind of did that that table of tasks and how many hours it would take and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, this is it. Like when it comes to that aspect of things, like sitting for a week and just write down. I use a bit of software called Timula to track my time for clients, but you can actually use it for personal reasons, and it is free for the start program as well. So what you can do is you can go through that and just like track your time and say, like, I'll spend 20 minutes doing X task, Y task, and put all your tasks in the notes so you know what you've been doing. That would be a very visual representation of that. Or you can just write it in a notebook. But like I said, you can kind of have these things, and you can actually even divide it up into tasks that brought joy, didn't bring joy, tasks that were easy, tasks that were hard, and work around it like that. If you've got tasks that don't bring joy and they're actually quite hard for your brain, they're the kind of things that I could help to pick up on, or at least provide some support around. But yeah, the number of hours, I've got clients on as little as 3 hours and as much as 20. So it just depends exactly on what they need. And I think as well, when you do the process, obviously for the amount of time you've asked for extensions, I think that kind of gets marked on your file, like ask for an extension.
Oh yeah, probably.
So they're building it as much as like I do a needs assessment and I'll look at where I can help. They're building a case at the same time, because I've got clients who are very good at saying like, this is exactly what I need, and they get very few hours because they've communicated it so clearly and so quickly. Whereas like if you need extensions and like various things like that, it shows that actually this is a problem for you, even if you're not saying it's a problem. It's evidence that's building up without even realizing. I've just seen there, do you have to have received a diagnosis to qualify? Not for mental health support. You can get that through Able Futures or Maximus without having any diagnosis. Other conditions, you have to have some kind of evidence. You won't necessarily be asked for it, but if they do ask for it, you have to be able to give it.
Does that have to be a formal diagnosis though? We're not quite sure, are we? I was told, I watched a webinar about access to work, in which they said that you didn't need to have formal diagnosis, but whether you might need to have evidence, like have filled in something like the ASRS, you know, the self
I don't think we take that overly seriously, if I'm honest with you. The kind of evidence they'll be looking for is the kind of stuff that I would say I would have submitted for Jack's EHCP before his diagnosis. So things like, have you seen a mental health professional? Are you under assessment? Are you in receipt of PIP or DLA? And what evidence did you submit to them? So like for my thing, I have one letter that says I've had surgery and all my bolts out and what have you. But for me, it's the daily needs stuff's been assessed by PIP. So I've got my PIP assessment form that specifically says this is what I need help with for my physical condition. Because a lot of times the doctors don't actually cover that either. So it's kind of evidence in the needs you have. Like I say, they're probably not going to ask for it, but if you've got it, it's kind of like just in case, you know, because if you get all the way down the road and they're like, right, we need to see your diagnosis letter, and you don't have one, there's a chance you might not get anything. And it would depend entirely on the diagnosis as well, to be honest. Like if it was for neurodivergence, it could be that you've got enough evidence. Like you might have reports from HR at work. I recently supported a client to apply for access to work because their workplace was like they were under a lot of like disciplinary action, having quite a few meltdowns at work, and actually that was evidence enough to put with that. They had a diagnosis as well, but that's not what, like, the diagnosis of autism that they got was when they were 6 wasn't relevant. It was the fact that they were having triggers in their environment that was triggering the neurodivergence. So that's the kind of evidence we submitted for that case. But yeah, all of the clients that I do have a formal diagnosis. Whether they've been asked for evidence is variable.
I think it's worth remembering as well that the thing about if you have other diagnoses like the mental health condition, because that's kind of how it was with me. So I had a diagnosis of depression as well, which I think was caused by, you know, since the ADHD's been treated, you know, that's all fine. So I think it's really good if you've got something like that as well to show as evidence that, you know, the challenges are so much with the neurodivergence that actually you get diagnosed with things like depression or anxiety or, you know, anything like that you've been to the doctor for.
Yeah. It's like with my thing, I don't have a diagnosis of autism or ADHD, but all of my clients think I do until I tell them otherwise. I don't actually say they're like, when I tell them I'm not diagnosed, they're more surprised that I'm not, you know. But for me, I have a diagnosis of fibromyalgia, which I don't think I've got that because I don't have the chronic pain aspect anymore. I mean, I manage it with limited daily activity and various things, but I used to be in pain constantly. And actually, things like the brain fog is still there sometimes, and things that like there was a few other aspects where it's actually things that I would really like benefit from a standing desk from. I have all the evidence in another condition. So just because you haven't got a neurodivergent diagnosis doesn't mean you're not going to get it for your neurodivergence, because all of the problems that I have that are related to what is diagnosed as fibromyalgia actually probably aren't fibromyalgia. I think the thing is with fibromyalgia, for me, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with having that diagnosis, but for me, it wasn't correct. They diagnosed me with that, and then a year later, I found out that my pelvis was the wrong shape. And all of the symptoms I have were related to either my pelvis or what could be neurodivergence. So, like I say, just because you haven't got a diagnosis specific to your needs doesn't mean that you're not going to get, because you might have other things that are overlapping that would provide enough evidence. And if anyone's got any questions on that, you're more than happy to bring it to me confidentially and I can have a look. because like as well, like, my background, I was a pharmacy technician for a while. I was a student speech therapist. I'm quite well informed in that level of things. So if there's things that you think, I've got this, but not quite covering that, you probably have got it covered. We can look at that.
And actually what they're asking for most of the time is what are your challenges with work? So yes, they ask what condition you've got or whatever, but they're most interested in what are you finding difficult? What are your challenges? What do you need support with?
Precisely. And, you know, I struggle with focus. I struggle to sit still. None of that's necessarily because of my other conditions, but actually the struggle to sit still is because my pelvis isn't feeling quite right. The struggle to focus could be the fibromyalgia. So I would say I've got enough evidence to get access to work for myself if I want to for neurodivergence because of these other things. So don't be disheartened if you haven't got a formal neurodivergent diagnosis. There's probably something else in your records that you could use as evidence if you were even asked for it at all.
Yeah, that's great. Just check the comments and see if there's anything there, any questions.
Yeah, we've got one there. Lots of anxiety and depression and menopause records on my records with my doctor, but not spoke to her about ADHD yet. I mean, if your like depression, anxiety, menopause stuff is affecting you, that's still a thing. Like, you know, menopause, anxiety, depression is still a thing that might mean you have extra needs at work, which may entitle you to access to work. So absolutely go with that. If you think that there's something you could benefit from, run with what you've got, because access to work's whole intention is to reduce the barrier between people and work. They would more than happily have you in work with support than out of work. So
yeah.
Oh, hi, Amanda. Yeah. Well, everyone needs a step. Let's be honest. Everyone needs.
Everyone needs a step.
Well, I get so much joy out of what I do for a job. Like it's that things like I'll do something and I'll know that it's coming up for the client. I think, oh, I'll just do that now because I know they're going to need it done, and it just saves them a little bit of stress on the day. It's like setting up this live, for example. I had this done like on Sunday because I just thought, oh, I'll just chuck it in, and then it's there, and then we know it's there, and it's done. And it's like the feedback I get as well, because I really am changing lives here. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
It's just such a wholesome feeling. And like I say, there's lots of people out there. There might be someone that's a better fit for people than me, but you're welcome to come to me first.
It'd be hard to find.
I'll happily help people for up to an hour, totally free, just giving them a bit of advice. And then one thing I will say as well, if you're pursuing the access to work support worker thing and don't have the money to pay me, we could always knock it off the first invoice. I'm pretty chill. Like if it's a point where you're going to have 20 hours support in September, but you need a bit of help now, I'm pretty flexible. That's all I say. I have to work when well, but I'm pretty flexible with how I work. So there's always a solution to a problem if you're working with a staff. That's what I'll say.
Oh, also, just one quick thing as well. I remember so I had to give three quotes in.
Yes.
And two people, were quite good, but I knew that you just through the whole process, everything that you knew and how you were planning to support me and everything was going to be so much better for me. They will automatically go with whatever the cheapest quote is because it's a government scheme. But you can ask for someone specific, and you can also negotiate, can't you? Because if the person who is actually going to give you the most value and help the most is slightly above one of the other quotes, you can actually talk to them. You can, see what you can do. So it's always worth pushing back or really requesting someone.
Yeah, absolutely. Like with me, like I would consider myself fairly specialized because of the fact that most of my clients, I attract all of the neurodivergents, all of the LGBTs. Like there's very few straight people on my roster who are totally identify with the gender they were assigned at birth. Like we have the spiciest group ever. My client roster is increased. They are a great bunch. They're either learning disabilities charities or they're neurodivergent clients, like individuals. I have a really spicy bunch here, but I'm quite happy to work with each individual on a very like personalized level because, that's just the way it works best. And some VAs will be very fixed And that might work for you, you know, for someone who is autistic, who likes very firm routines and to be told this is the routine, that might work for you. That's what works for my son really well. Jack likes to go into something where he's going to have a very rigid, very structured thing, where actually quite a lot of people with ADHD like a little bit more flexibility, a bit more chillness. Like I work on a Sunday. I don't normally take client calls on a Sunday, but you're welcome to bombard me with messages and I will reply because I'm working. That's why I work on a Sunday, because it's the day I'm least likely to be interrupted. I can accommodate evenings, I can accommodate mornings. I wake people up in the morning. I remind you to take your meds, to order your meds.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, you help me keep on top of that.
My calendar's full of medication reminders for other people, because that's something like medication reminders for controlled drugs. Obviously, most of you will know if you're on them, you can order 4 weeks at a time and that's it, because that's the law. And I don't think that's very ADHD friendly. You can't put them on a repeat where it automatically repeats, because that's not allowed either. So I guess that's where my pharmacy technician background comes in, is that like this is a really ableist system when it comes to medication. And quite often as well, when there's not a shared care agreement in place, it's ringing different consultants to get prescriptions sent because the GP won't cover it, because that can be a whole other ball game as far as I've found. My GP wouldn't prescribe my painkillers because they were a controlled drug, and I had to get my consultant to write a letter, and it's a lot of hassle, and it's a lot of backwards and forwards for someone with ADHD, and it's very easy to just let it slide. But that's why it's got me, and I'm quite happy to ring people and shout at them if they're being ableist as well. I actually had a conversation the other day because a system had changed the way they do things in a way that was detrimental to one of my clients. I might have told this company that they were in breach of the Equality Act 2010, Section 20, the need for reasonable adjustments, and that they should review their policies. Because that's the thing, I will fight for my clients as well. You know, quite often, you haven't got to fight in this because you're so busy getting through the days. I have got that fight, and I will fight for everybody. Because it's just, you know, the world's not made for neurodivergent people, and I'm just doing what I can from my corner to help them all out, you know.
Yeah. And like anything else, it's easier to do it for other people. So it's the same with coaching. It's the same with you doing what you do for your clients. You might struggle with it in your own life, but you're able to help somebody else with theirs. And it's the same with coaching. You know, I can coach people and know exactly what needs to be done, but I need someone to help me actually do it as well.
100%. Yeah, totally agree with that. Like, I was talking to someone today, and they were like, I was on Focus Mate, and they were like, "Oh, you're doing this for you?" Like, I'm never doing anything for me. If I am on Focus Mate, I can almost guarantee what I am doing is for a client. It's not going to be for me. But it's like, for me, I get a lot of satisfaction off coordinating all of the moving parts that the client can't focus on. The way I see it is, all my clients have a zone of genius, whether it's being a coach or having their e-commerce range or whatever it is that they do. And my zone of genius is the back end of that, and actually making the moving parts fit so that they can do all of these things in a way that works for them with the support that they need at the right time.
Yeah.
So find yourself somebody who can do that, and you want them a winner.
Excellent. That's brilliant. Is there anything else, Steph, that you feel we haven't covered or that you'd like to share? Or I think we've kind of answered everything.
I did make notes. I'm just going to make sure I've covered everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, regarding the process, like I say, if anyone needs any advice, feel free to drop me a message. The best place to get me is emails. And this is a thing that I do as an adjustment for myself, is that if it comes into my emails, I know I will respond within 24 hours. If it's anywhere else, it's not going to happen. It needs to come in as an email. But like, that's one thing that I think as well is really frustrating. Do you not find that there's loads of ways that people can communicate with you as a lead, right? Like when you've got clients come in, they'll come through Facebook, or they'll come through email, come through your website, and it's so many different ways.
Yeah.
And like, the world's, like I say, there's not an app that exists yet that brings all communications into one place. Wouldn't that be a really cool thing?
Yeah, it would. I had right back when I was doing my practical like coach training, one of my clients was desperate to find something like that, and I was asking around. I couldn't find anything at all that would do that for absolutely everything. Someone needs to invent it.
It totally annoys me. Like, I can automate things to a point. That's one thing I love doing as well, as systems automation. So if someone comes to me and they don't have any systems, I love making automated systems. because then it means it takes away so many of the little crappy tasks that nobody wants to do. But there's not one for all of your things yet. So I will put my email address in the chat after this, so you can all get in touch if you want to. Bring it on, because more people should be getting access to work. So many people aren't getting it that are entitled. So get your applications in, give me a shout. I'll do what I can to support you, because it's not a friendly process. It's not made for everyone. And even if you don't hire me, I'm good. I get plenty of referrals. I'll be okay. Like, I'm not going to be offended. But, you know, I want to help as many people as I can, to be honest, because it's just, it's such a good service. It's such a good system. Access to work is great. There's just not enough people claiming for it, and the system isn't quite made for us yet. It's made for people with physical disabilities who have a picture of their broken bones, not people who have to try and describe what's going on in here when the whole process that there, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, lovely. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. And yeah, so make sure you do pop your email in the chat afterwards, and everyone get onto Steph if you need any help. So thanks very much. And I guess we'll be back again next Friday. So I'm not sure exactly. I think I may be. Depends if we're going to have any more access to work stuff, but if not, I'm probably going to do some kind of 101 stuff about autism, because we've been concentrating a lot on ADHD recently.
I'm all for that. I love a good chat about autism.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, all brings me joy. My Jack and his autism, I do have something quite entertaining to leave you with today. My Jack is quite blunt, and he doesn't like school. And last week he went, Ma'am, I want to go to school so you don't go to jail. I was like, thank you, sweetheart. That's excellent. And I went, Mammy's too pretty for jail, aren't I, son? And he went, yeah. And then he walked straight up to his transport escort and went, not like you. I was like, all of the laughing autism. Honestly, I was just like, I was horrified. I was like, what am I supposed to say this? But yeah, I will absolutely be watching for autism, because I love a good chat about autism, me. Great.
Excellent. Okay, thank you, everyone. And yeah, hopefully the recording should be, hopefully there haven't been any glitches like there were last week, but if there are, or there's any problems, we can share the recording, can't we?
I'll fix it, don't worry.
Yeah. Thanks very much, everyone. Bye.
Bye.